Marcus walked into the music room with his usual big smile. He was 17 years old and loved making people laugh. At Riverside High School, everyone knew Marcus as the funny guy. He always had a joke ready and loved being the center of attention. The lunch break had just started. Most students were in the cafeteria eating their food. But Marcus liked to explore different parts of the school. He enjoyed finding new places where he could plan his next funny trick. The music room was quiet and empty. Sunlight came through the big windows, making everything look peaceful. Marcus looked around and saw old music stands, some drums in the corner, and sheets of music scattered on tables. But what caught his eye was the old piano sitting by itself. Near the back wall, the piano looked like it had been there for many years. Its black paint was a little faded, and some keys looked worn from use. Marcus had never really noticed it before. He walked over and pressed one key. The sound echoed in the empty room. Marcus grinned to himself. He always thought musical instruments were boring. He could not play anything, and he did not understand why some people spent so much time learning music. To him, it seemed like a waste of time when you could be having fun with friends instead. He heard footsteps in the hallway. Someone was coming toward the music room. Marcus quickly moved away from the piano and pretended to look at some papers on a nearby table. He wanted to see who would come in. The door opened slowly, and Sarah walked in. She was carrying her usual stack of books and a small lunch bag. Sarah was also 17, but she was very different from Marcus. She was quiet and kept to herself most of the time. She had long brown hair that she often kept in a simple ponytail, and she wore plain clothes that never drew attention. Marcus watched as Sarah looked around the room. She seemed to be checking if anyone else was there. When she thought she was alone, her shoulders relaxed a little. She walked to a chair near the window and sat down. She opened one of her books and started reading while eating her sandwich. Marcus knew Sarah from their classes together, but they had never really talked. She always sat in the front row and never spoke unless a teacher asked her a question. Even then, she spoke so quietly that sometimes people had to ask her to repeat her answer. Other students at school often ignored Sarah. She did not join any clubs or sports teams. She did not go to parties or school dances. During lunch, she usually sat alone in the library or found quiet places like this music room. Some students thought she was weird because she was so quiet. Others just forgot she existed. Marcus had never thought much about Sarah before. She was just there, like a piece of furniture that you notice but do not really think about. But seeing her in the music room gave him an idea. His friends Tyler and Jake would probably think it was funny if he could get the quiet girl to do something embarrassing. Marcus was not a mean person by nature. He just loved attention and laughs. Sometimes he did not think about how his jokes might make other people feel. He only thought about how funny something would be, and how his friends would react. He quietly took out his phone and sent a quick message to Tyler and Jake. "Come to music room now. Something funny about to happen." He knew they would come quickly, because they always wanted to see his latest prank. Sarah continued reading her book, completely unaware that Marcus was watching her. She looked peaceful as she read and ate her lunch. The sunlight from the window made her look almost pretty, Marcus thought. But then he pushed that thought away. He was focused on his plan. Within a few minutes, Tyler and Jake appeared at the music room door. Tyler was tall and thin with red hair. He played on the basketball team and was popular with many students. Jake was shorter but very loud. He loved Marcus's jokes and always laughed the hardest at them. Marcus put his finger to his lips to tell them to be quiet. He pointed at Sarah, who still had not noticed the three boys watching her. Tyler and Jake looked confused at first, but then Marcus pointed at the piano. They began to understand what he was thinking. The three friends moved closer to where Sarah was sitting. Marcus was the leader, so he would do the talking. Tyler and Jake would support him and make Sarah feel like she had to do what they asked. Marcus cleared his throat loudly. "Hey there, Sarah." Sarah jumped a little and looked up from her book. When she saw the three boys standing near her, her face became red. She was clearly uncomfortable and nervous. "Oh, hi, Marcus," she said quietly. She started gathering her books, probably planning to leave. Wait, don't go yet, Marcus said with his biggest, friendliest smile. We just wanted to hang out and talk, Sarah looked confused. These boys had never wanted to talk to her before. She did not know what to say, so she just sat there holding her books. Marcus walked over to the piano and hit a few keys randomly. The sounds were loud and not very pleasant. I was just thinking, he said, I bet you know how to play this thing. Sarah shook her head quickly. No, I don't play piano. Come on, Tyler joined in. Smart girls like you always know how to play instruments. Yeah, Jake added. My sister says all the quiet, brainy types take piano lessons. Sarah's face became even more red. She stood up and took a step toward the door. I really should go. I have to study for a test, but Marcus moved to block her path. He was still smiling, but his eyes showed he was determined to make his joke happen. Don't be shy, Sarah. It's just us here. No one else will see. Sarah looked around nervously. The three boys were now standing between her and the door. She felt trapped and did not know what to do. Her heart started beating faster. Marcus could see that Sarah was uncomfortable, but he thought it was just normal shyness. He did not realize how scared she actually felt. To him, this was just a harmless joke that would be over in a few minutes. Look, Marcus said, I'll make you a deal. Just play one simple song on the piano, and we'll leave you alone to read your book. It doesn't have to be good. Just play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star or something easy like that. Sarah's hands were shaking now. She held her books tighter against her chest like they could protect her. Please, I really can't. I don't know how to play. The three boys exchanged looks. They thought Sarah was just being stubborn or too shy. They did not understand that there might be a real reason why she did not want to play the piano. Marcus was not giving up. He had told his friends that something funny would happen, and now he felt like he had to make it happen. He did not want to look stupid in front of Tyler and Jake. Come on, Sarah, Marcus said again. His voice was still friendly, but it was getting more firm. It's not a big deal. Everyone can play a little bit of piano. Even I can probably figure out a simple song. To prove his point, Marcus sat down at the piano bench and started hitting keys randomly. The sounds were terrible, but he laughed and looked at his friends. Tyler and Jake laughed too, encouraging him to continue. See, Marcus said, standing up from the bench. If I can do that, you can definitely do better. You're way smarter than me. Sarah backed up against the wall. She was feeling more trapped by the minute. The boys were not being mean exactly, but they would not let her leave. She wished someone else would come into the music room, but it was still lunchtime and most people were in the cafeteria. I told you I don't know how, Sarah said again. Her voice was getting quieter, which always happened when she was nervous. Jake stepped forward. Why are you being so weird about this? It's just a piano. Are you afraid you'll break it or something? Tyler laughed. Yeah, what's the worst that could happen? You hit a wrong note? So what? Marcus nodded. Exactly. No one cares if you mess up. We just want to hear you try. It'll be fun. But Sarah did not think it would be fun at all. Her stomach felt sick and her hands were sweating. She wanted to run out of the room, but the three boys were still blocking. The door. Marcus was starting to get frustrated. He had expected Sarah to just sit down and play something badly, they would all laugh, and then it would be over. He had not expected her to fight so hard against such a simple request. Look, Sarah, Marcus said, his smile becoming less real. We're not leaving until you play something. So you might as well just do it and get it over with. Tyler and Jake moved closer to Sarah. They were not trying to scare her, but they wanted to show that they supported Marcus. Sarah felt surrounded. Why won't you just play? Jake asked. Are you embarrassed because you think you're bad at it? Maybe she's scared we'll make fun of her, Tyler suggested. Marcus got an idea. Hey, I promise we won't laugh. Right, guys? He looked at Tyler and Jake, who nodded. We'll be totally serious. No jokes, no laughing. Just play one song and we'll leave you alone. Sarah was running out of options. She could see that the boys were not going to give up. They thought they were being reasonable, but they did not understand how wrong they were. Please, Sarah said one more time. I really can't do this. Why not? Marcus asked. He was genuinely confused now. It's just a piano. What's the big deal? Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. She felt tears starting to form, but she did not. Want to cry in front of these boys? That would make everything worse. Marcus saw that Sarah looked like she might cry, and for a second he felt bad. But then he told himself that she was just being dramatic. Playing piano was not something to cry about. Tell you what, Marcus said, trying a different approach. If you play one song, I'll do your homework for a week. I don't want you to do my homework, Sarah said quietly. Then what do you want? Tyler asked. We're trying to be nice here. Jake had an idea. Maybe she thinks she's too good for us. Like maybe she thinks we're not smart enough to appreciate real music. This made Marcus angry. He did not like the idea that Sarah might think she was better than them. Is that it, Sarah? Do you think you're too cool to play piano for us? No, that's not it, Sarah said quickly. She could see that Marcus was getting upset, and that scared her even more. Then what is it? Marcus demanded. Give us one good reason why you can't just play a simple song. Sarah looked around the room desperately. She felt like she was trapped in a bad dream. She had come to the music room to have a peaceful lunch, and now she was being forced to do something that felt impossible. Marcus made a decision. Fine, if you won't walk over there yourself, we'll help you. He nodded to Tyler and Jake. The three boys moved toward Sarah. They were not planning to hurt her, but they were going to make sure she sat down at the piano. Wait, Sarah said, holding up her hands. Don't touch me! The boys stopped. Sarah was breathing hard now, and she looked really scared. For the first time, Marcus started to wonder if maybe this was not as funny as he had thought. Look, Marcus said, trying to calm things down. We're not going to hurt you. We just want you to play one song, that's all. Sarah realized she was completely out of options. The boys were not going to leave her alone, and no one was coming to help her. She felt like she had no choice. Okay, she said in a very quiet voice. I'll try, Marcus smiled widely. Great. See, that wasn't so hard. Sarah walked slowly toward the piano. Each step felt heavy, like she was walking through thick mud. Her heart was beating so fast, she thought the boys might be able to hear it. When she reached the piano bench, Sarah stopped. She stared down at the black and white keys, and more memories came rushing back. She remembered her mother's hands moving gracefully over keys just like these. She remembered sitting next to her mother on a bench just like this one. Sit down, Tyler encouraged. It's okay. Sarah sat down slowly on the bench. She placed her hands on her knees and stared at the piano keys. The boys gathered around behind her, waiting to see what would happen. Marcus felt excited. His joke was finally working. He was already thinking about how he would tell this story to other friends later. He imagined how funny it would be when Sarah played something terrible and everyone laughed. But as Sarah sat there looking at the keys, something changed in her face. The fear was still there, but there was something else too. Something deeper and more complicated. Sarah lifted her hands slowly and placed them over the keys. She did not touch them yet, but her hands hovered in the right position. Marcus noticed that her hand position looked professional, not like someone who had never played before. Go on, Jake whispered. Play something. Sarah's hands were shaking as she lowered them to touch the keys. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, very softly, she began to play. The first notes that came from the piano were nothing like what Marcus had expected. Instead of the simple, clumsy sounds he thought he would hear, beautiful music filled the room. Sarah's fingers moved across the keys with perfect control, creating a melody that was both sad and lovely. Marcus felt his smile disappear from his face. This was not supposed to happen. Sarah was supposed to play badly so they could all laugh. But the music she was playing was incredible. It was better than anything Marcus had ever heard on the radio. Tyler and Jake stopped whispering and joking. They stood perfectly still, listening to the amazing sounds coming from the old piano. Neither of them knew much about music, but they could tell that what Sarah was playing was special. The song Sarah chose was not simple at all. It was a piece of classical music that required years of training to play correctly. Her fingers moved quickly and smoothly from key to key, never missing a note. The melody was complex and emotional, telling a story without words. As Sarah played, something incredible happened to her. The fear and nervousness that had been on her face just moments before began to fade away. Her shoulders relaxed and her breathing became steady. It was like the music was washing away all the bad feelings that had been building up inside her. Marcus watched in shock as Sarah transformed before his eyes. The quiet, scared girl who had been trying to escape from them was gone. In her place was someone confident and skilled, someone who clearly belonged at that piano bench. The music grew louder and more powerful. Sarah's whole body moved with the rhythm, swaying gently as her hands danced across the keys. Her eyes were closed now, and there was a small smile on her face. She looked peaceful and happy in a way that Marcus had never seen before. Tyler leaned over and whispered to Marcus, "Dude, she's amazing." Marcus nodded but could not speak. He was too stunned by what he was seeing and hearing. This was not the same Sarah who sat quietly in the back of their classes. This was someone completely different. The melody changed, becoming even more beautiful and complicated. Sarah's left hand played deep, rich notes while her right hand created a delicate tune that seemed to float above the bass line. The two parts worked together perfectly, creating music that was full of emotion and meaning. As Marcus listened, he began to feel uncomfortable in a new way. Before, he had felt frustrated because Sarah would not do what he wanted. Now he felt bad because he was realizing that he had forced her to share something very personal and important. The way Sarah played was not like someone who had just learned piano as a hobby. This was the playing of someone who had spent many years studying music seriously. Every movement of her fingers was precise and purposeful. She knew exactly what she was doing. Marcus started to understand that Sarah had not refused to play because she could not do it. She had refused because she could do it too well. She had been trying to protect something precious, and he had forced her to expose it. The music continued to fill the room, and Marcus noticed that Sarah's eyes were starting to get watery, but she kept playing, never missing a beat. The tears that were forming in her eyes made Marcus feel even worse about what he had done. Tyler and Jake were completely mesmerized by the performance. They had never heard anything like this before. The music was so beautiful that it made them forget about everything else. They forgot about lunch, about their afternoon classes, about everything except the incredible sounds filling the room. Sarah played for several more minutes, moving through different sections of the piece. Sometimes the music was soft and gentle, like a whisper. Other times it was powerful and dramatic, filling every corner of the room with sound. Through it all, Sarah's technique never faltered. Marcus began to notice small details about Sarah's playing that he had not seen at first. The way she held her wrists, the curve of her fingers, the way she used her whole body to create the music. Everything showed that she had received professional training. As the piece continued, Marcus started to feel a new emotion, respect. He had always thought of Sarah as just a quiet, boring girl who had nothing interesting about her. Now he was seeing that she had been hiding an incredible talent. She was not boring at all. She was extraordinary. The music reached a particularly emotional section, and Sarah's playing became even more expressive. Marcus could hear sadness in the melody, but also hope and beauty. It was like Sarah was telling her life story through the piano keys. Tyler wiped his eyes. He had not realized that music could make him feel so much. The melody was touching something deep inside him that he did not even know existed. Jake was standing perfectly still, afraid that any movement might break the spell that Sarah's music had created. He had never paid attention to classical music before, but now he understood why some people loved it so much. Marcus looked around the room and noticed that the afternoon sunlight was hitting the piano in a way that made everything look magical. Sarah looked like an angel sitting there, creating beautiful music from an old, worn piano. As Sarah continued to play, Marcus began to realize something terrible. By forcing her to play, he had not just embarrassed her, he had violated something sacred, The music she was sharing was clearly very personal and meaningful to her. She had not wanted to share it, and he had made her do it anyway. The melody began to build toward what sounded like a climax. Sarah's playing became more intense, her fingers flying across the keys with incredible speed and accuracy. The music was so complex that Marcus could not understand how anyone could remember all the notes, let alone play them perfectly. Marcus felt sick to his stomach as he realized what a terrible mistake he had made. This was not a funny joke anymore. This was something serious and important, and he had ruined it by forcing it to happen. The music reached its emotional peak, and Sarah played with such passion and skill that Marcus felt like he might cry. He had never been moved by music before, but Sarah's playing was so beautiful and powerful that it touched his heart in a way he had never experienced. As the piece began to wind down toward its ending, Marcus knew that his life had been changed forever. He would never be able to think of Sarah as just a quiet, boring girl again. She was talented and deep and amazing, and he had treated her terribly. The last notes of the music hung in the air like a prayer, beautiful and pure and perfect. Then Sarah lifted her hands from the keys, and the room fell into complete silence. The silence that followed Sarah's playing was different from any quiet Marcus had ever experienced. It was not just the absence of sound, it was like the whole world had stopped to listen to something sacred and beautiful. Marcus, Tyler, and Jake stood frozen behind the piano bench. None of them knew what to say or do. The music had been so incredible that it left them speechless. They had expected to laugh at a simple, clumsy attempt at playing piano. Instead, they had witnessed something that felt almost magical. Sarah sat very still on the piano bench. Her hands rested in her lap, and her eyes were still closed. Tears were now flowing freely down her cheeks, but she did not make any sound. The tears seemed to be both happy and sad at the same time. Marcus felt his heart pounding in his chest. He had never felt so confused and ashamed in his entire life. Just 10 minutes ago, he had been excited about his funny joke. Now he felt like he had done something terrible without even realizing it. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours, but was probably only about 30 seconds. Then, suddenly, they heard footsteps in the hallway outside the music room. Someone was coming. The first person to appear in the doorway was Mrs. Rodriguez, the Spanish teacher. She had been walking past when she heard the beautiful music coming from the room. She stopped and looked inside, trying to understand what she was seeing. Behind Mrs. Rodriguez came several students who had also been drawn by the music. First was Emma, a girl from Sarah's English class. Then came David and Michael, 2 seniors who had been heading to their lockers. More people continued to gather in the doorway. Mrs. Rodriguez stepped quietly into the room, followed by the students. They all moved very carefully, as if they were entering a church during a prayer. The atmosphere in the room felt sacred and special. Sarah finally opened her eyes and saw all the people staring at her. The peaceful expression on her face immediately changed to one of panic and embarrassment. She had not realized that anyone else had been listening to her play. "Oh no," Sarah whispered, so quietly that only Marcus could hear her. She started to stand up from the piano bench, but her legs were shaking so much that she had to sit back down. Mrs. Rodriguez approached, slowly, a look of amazement on her face. "Sarah," she said gently, "that was absolutely beautiful. I had no idea you were such a talented musician." More students had gathered in the doorway, attracted by the crowd and whispers about incredible piano playing. Soon there were about 15 people in the room, all looking at Sarah with expressions of awe and admiration. Emma stepped forward with tears in her eyes. "Sarah, that was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. How long have you been playing piano?" Sarah looked around at all the faces staring at her and felt overwhelmed. She had spent years keeping her musical ability secret, and now suddenly everyone knew about it. She felt exposed and vulnerable, like someone had taken off all her clothes. In front of a crowd. I have to go," Sarah said, standing up quickly from the piano bench. But the room was so full of people that she could not find a clear path to the door. Marcus watched Sarah's face and saw pure terror there. He finally understood that his joke had gone horribly wrong. Sarah had not wanted to share her music with anyone, and now she was trapped in a room full of people asking her questions and staring at her. "Wait, Sarah," called out David, one of the seniors. "Can you play something else?" "That was incredible." "Yeah," agreed Michael. "I've never heard anything like that before. You're amazing." More students were gathering in the hallway, trying to see what was happening. Word was spreading quickly through the school that there was an incredible piano player in the music room. Sarah looked more and more panicked as more people crowded into the room. She was breathing fast and her face was very pale. Marcus could see that she was having trouble handling all the attention. Mrs. Rodriguez noticed Sarah's distress and tried to help. "Everyone, please give Sarah some space," she said. "I'm sure. She's feeling overwhelmed." But the students were too excited to listen. They had never seen such amazing talent from one of their classmates, and they wanted to know more. "How did you learn to play like that?" asked Emma. "Do you take lessons somewhere?" asked another student. "Have you ever performed in concerts?" asked someone else. The questions came fast, one after another. Sarah looked around desperately, trying to find a way to escape. Marcus could see that she was close to crying again. But this time it was not because of the beautiful music. Tyler and Jake, who had been silent since Sarah finished playing, finally realized that something was wrong. They had been so amazed by the music that they had not noticed how upset Sarah was becoming. "Hey, maybe we should leave her alone," Tyler said quietly to the crowd, but more students kept arriving. Someone had texted their friends about the amazing piano playing, and word was spreading throughout the school. Even some teachers had heard about it and were coming to see what was happening. Mr. Peterson, the music teacher, pushed through the crowd of students. When he saw Sarah sitting at the piano looking terrified, he immediately understood the situation. "Everyone out," Mr. Peterson said firmly. "This is not a concert hall. Sarah needs some privacy." Some of the students started to leave, but others wanted to stay and ask more questions. The room was still crowded and noisy. Sarah suddenly stood up from the piano bench and pushed through the crowd toward the door. She was crying openly now, and she just wanted to get away from all the staring faces and questions. "Sarah, wait," called Mrs. Rodriguez. "There's nothing to be embarrassed about. You have an incredible gift." But Sarah was already at the door, squeezing past the students who were still trying to get into the room. Marcus watched her go and felt sick with guilt. This was all his fault. As Sarah disappeared into the hallway, the crowd of students slowly began to disperse. They were all talking excitedly about what they had just heard. "I can't believe Sarah Miller can play like that," said Emma to her friends. "She's been in my classes for years, and I never knew she was so talented," said David. "Why do you think she kept it secret?" asked Michael. Marcus stayed in the music room as the other students left. Tyler and Jake came over to him, both looking confused and concerned. "Dude," Tyler said quietly, "I think we messed up." Jake nodded. She looked really upset when everyone showed up. Marcus felt terrible. He had wanted to embarrass Sarah with a simple joke, but instead he had exposed her most precious secret to half the school. Now everyone knew about her incredible talent, and she clearly had not wanted them to know. Mr. Peterson approached the three boys. He looked serious and disappointed. "What exactly happened here?" Mr. Peterson asked. "How did Sarah end up playing piano in front of a crowd when she obviously didn't want to?" Marcus looked down at his feet. He could not bring himself to meet the teacher's eyes. For the first time in his life, he was truly ashamed of something he had done. Marcus stood in the music room facing Mr. Peterson, feeling smaller than he had ever felt in his life. The teacher was waiting for an answer, and Marcus knew he had to tell the truth about what had happened. We asked her to play," Marcus said quietly, still looking at the floor. "Asked?" Mr. Peterson raised his eyebrows. "It looked to me like Sarah was very upset about playing in front of people." "Are you sure you just asked?" Tyler and Jake looked uncomfortable. They both knew that what they had done was wrong, but they had not realized how wrong until they saw Sarah run away crying. "We didn't mean to hurt her," Tyler said. "We just thought it would be funny if she tried to play something simple," Mr. Peterson's expression became even more serious. Funny? You thought it would be funny to force someone to do something they clearly didn't want to do? Marcus finally looked up at the teacher. We didn't know she could really play. We thought she would just mess around on the keys and we would all laugh. We never expected ... At what? Mr. Peterson asked. That she would be so good, Jake answered. She played like a professional or something. It was incredible. Mr. Peterson nodded slowly. Sarah is indeed an incredibly talented musician. She's been playing piano since she was very young. But she's also been through some very difficult times recently. The three boys looked at each other. None of them knew anything about Sarah's personal life. She had always been just a quiet girl in their classes, someone they never really thought about. What kind of difficult times? Marcus asked, though he was not sure he wanted to hear the answer. Mr. Peterson was quiet for a moment, deciding how much he should tell them. Sarah's mother passed away about 6 months ago. Her mother was a professional pianist who taught Sarah everything she knows about music. Marcus felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. No wonder Sarah had not wanted to play the piano. No wonder she had looked so sad and emotional while she was playing. The music was connected to her mother. "Oh no," Tyler whispered. "We didn't know." "Of course you didn't know," Mr. Peterson said. "Sarah is a very private person, especially since her mother died. Playing piano is something very personal and painful for her right now." Jake looked like he might be sick. "So when we made her play ... you forced her to do something that brought back memories of her mother," Mr. Peterson finished. "You made her share something very private and meaningful in front of a room full of strangers." Marcus sat down in one of the chairs, feeling overwhelmed by guilt. He had thought he was just playing a harmless joke on a quiet girl. Instead, he had forced a grieving daughter to relive painful memories in public. "Is she going to be okay?" Marcus asked. Mr. Peterson sighed. "I don't know. Sarah has been struggling since her mother died. She used to love playing piano, but now it's too painful for her. That's why she's been avoiding the music room and anything related to music." "But she played so beautifully," Tyler said. "It was like she was born to play piano?" "She was," Mr. Peterson agreed. "Her mother started teaching her when she was 4 years old. By the time she was 10, Sarah was already playing pieces that most adult students couldn't handle. Her mother was so proud of her." The teacher paused and looked at the three boys seriously. "But after her mother died, Sarah stopped playing completely. She said it hurt too much to touch the piano keys because they reminded her of sitting next to her mother on the piano bench." Marcus felt tears starting to form in his eyes. He had never felt so terrible about anything in his entire life. "We ruined everything for her, didn't we?" "I don't know," Mr. Peterson said honestly. "Maybe playing again will help her heal. Or maybe being forced to do it in front of a crowd will make her hate music even more. Only time will tell." The room fell silent again. The three boys were each lost in their own thoughts about what they had done and how badly they had misjudged the situation. Finally, Marcus stood up. "I have to find her." "I have to apologize. That's a good start," Mr. Peterson said. "But an apology might not be enough to fix this. Sarah trusted that her privacy would be respected, and now half the school knows about her musical ability." As if to prove the teacher's point, they could hear students in the hallways still talking excitedly about the amazing piano playing they had witnessed. "She's going to be so famous now," one voice said. "I wonder if she'd play at the talent show," said another. "Maybe she can join the school band," suggested a third voice. Marcus winced at each comment. All of this attention was exactly what Sarah had been trying to avoid. Tyler shook his head sadly. "She's never going to forgive us." "Maybe not," Mr. Peterson agreed. "What you three did today had serious consequences. You forced someone to do something very personal against their will, and now Sarah will have to deal with unwanted attention and questions for a long time." Jake looked confused. "But everyone thinks she's amazing. Isn't that a good thing?" Mr. Peterson shook his head. "Not if she didn't want the attention. Some people prefer to keep their talents private, especially when those talents are connected to painful memories." Marcus walked over to the piano and gently touched one of the keys. The sound it made was pure and clear, just like Sarah's playing had been, but now the instrument seemed sad and lonely. Her mother really taught her everything? Marcus asked. Yes, Mr. Peterson said. They used to practice together every day. After school, Sarah's mother would sit right next to her on that bench, guiding her hands and helping her understand the music. Marcus could picture it in his mind, a younger Sarah sitting next to her mother, both of them smiling as they played. Beautiful music together. It made his heart hurt to think about how much Sarah must miss those times. The piece she played today, Mr. Peterson continued, was one of her mother's favorites. I heard her mother play it at a concert once. Sarah's version was just as beautiful. So, when she was playing, Tyler said slowly, she was thinking about her mom. Probably, Mr. Peterson nodded. Music has a way of bringing back powerful memories. For Sarah, playing piano is like having a conversation with her mother's spirit. The three boys stood quietly, finally understanding the full weight of what they had done. They had not just embarrassed Sarah or violated her privacy. They had forced her to have an emotional, personal moment with her deceased mother's memory in front of a crowd of strangers. I feel sick, Marcus said, and he meant it. His stomach was churning with guilt and regret. Mr. Peterson looked at his watch. Lunch period is almost over. You boys need to get to your next classes. But I want you to think very carefully about what happened here today. What about Sarah? Jake asked. Shouldn't we try to find her and apologize? Eventually, yes, Mr. Peterson said. But right now, she probably needs some space to process what happened. Give her some time before you approach her. Marcus nodded, but he knew he would not be able to concentrate on anything else until he had a chance to apologize to Sarah. He had never felt so guilty about anything in his life. As the three boys gathered their things to leave, Mr. Peterson called out to them, "One more thing. I hope you've learned something important today about making assumptions about people." What do you mean? Tyler asked. You saw Sarah as just a quiet, boring girl who would be easy to embarrass. But she turned out to be one of the most talented musicians I've ever encountered. Maybe next time you'll think twice before judging someone based on appearances. Marcus knew the teacher was right. He had spent years thinking he understood everyone at school, putting people into simple categories in his mind. But today he had learned that people were much more complicated than he had ever imagined. The boys left the music room and walked slowly toward their afternoon classes. The hallways were still buzzing with excited conversations about Sarah's incredible piano performance. Did you hear about Sarah Miller? One student was saying to another. I wish I could play piano like that, said a younger girl to her friend. I wonder why she never told anyone she was so talented, mused a senior as he walked past. Each comment made Marcus feel worse. By tomorrow, the whole school would know about Sarah's musical ability. She would be famous whether she wanted to. Be or not. As Marcus walked to his next class, he thought about all the times he had seen Sarah sitting alone in the library or eating lunch by herself. He had always assumed she was alone because she was boring or antisocial. Now he wondered if she was alone because she was dealing with grief and sadness that none of them could imagine. He also thought about his own behavior over the years. How? Many times had he made jokes at other people's expense without thinking about their feelings? How many times had he assumed he understood someone's situation without really knowing anything about their life? The bell rang for the next class period, but Marcus barely heard it. He was too busy thinking about Sarah, wondering where she was and how she was feeling. He imagined her hiding somewhere in the school, crying about having her most private feelings exposed to everyone. As he sat down in his history class, Marcus made a decision. He was going to find Sarah after school and apologize, even if she did not want to hear it. He owed her that much, but even as he made this promise to himself, Marcus knew that saying sorry would not be enough to fix what he had done. Some mistakes were too big for simple apologies. Some wounds took much longer to heal. The rest of the school day passed slowly for Marcus. He could not focus on any of his classes because he kept thinking about Sarah and what he had done to her. Every time he heard students talking about the amazing piano performance, he felt worse. When the final bell rang, Marcus quickly gathered his things and went looking for Sarah. He checked the library first, since that was where she usually spent her free time. But the librarian said she had not seen Sarah all afternoon. Marcus then checked the cafeteria, thinking maybe Sarah had gone there to be around other people, but she was not there either. He looked in several empty classrooms and even checked the parking lot to see if she had already gone home. Finally, Marcus decided to go back to the music room. Maybe Sarah had returned there to get her backpack, which she had left behind when she ran away. When Marcus reached the music room, he found the door was closed. He knocked quietly and heard a soft voice say, "Go away, Sarah?" Marcus called through the door, "It's Marcus. Can I please talk to you?" "No," came the reply. "Please just leave me alone." Marcus felt his heart break a little. Sarah's voice sounded tired and sad, not angry like he had expected. "Sarah, I know you don't want to see me, but I really need to apologize. What I did was wrong." There was silence for a long moment. Then Marcus heard footsteps approaching the door. Sarah opened it just a crack and looked out at him. Her eyes were red from crying and she looked exhausted. "What do you want?" Sarah asked quietly. "I want to say I'm sorry," Marcus said. "I know that's not enough, but I need you to know that I feel terrible about what happened." Sarah opened the door a little wider but did not invite him in. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she asked. Marcus nodded. "Mr. Peterson told me about your mother. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I had no idea." Fresh tears started forming in Sarah's eyes. "My mom and I used to play together every day. The piano was our special thing, just between us and now ... She paused, wiping her eyes. "Now everyone knows about it. I know I can't take it back," Marcus said. "But I want you to know that I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I thought you would just play a simple song badly and we would all laugh. I never imagined you were so talented." Sarah looked at him with a mixture of sadness and anger. "That makes it even worse, Marcus. You wanted to embarrass me. You wanted people to laugh at me. ... Marcus felt ashamed all over again. She was right. His original plan had been cruel, even if it seemed harmless at the time. "You're right, that was wrong of me. I've been thinking about it all day, and I realize I've been a terrible person." "Have you seen how everyone's been talking about me?" Sarah asked. "I can't walk down the hall without people staring at me and asking questions. Some girl I've never even met asked me if I would play at her birthday party." Marcus winced. "I heard some of the conversations. I know this is all my fault." Sarah stepped back into the music room and sat down on a chair near the window. She looked very small and tired. "I spent 6 months avoiding this room because it reminded me too much of my mom. Today was the first time I played piano since her funeral." "I'm sorry," Marcus said again, feeling helpless. "I wish I could undo what happened." "The worst part," Sarah continued, "is that it felt good to play again. For those few minutes, it was like my mom was sitting right next to me, helping me with the hard parts like she used to do." Marcus did not know what to say to that. He stood in the doorway, feeling like an intruder in Sarah's private moment of grief. "But then I opened my eyes and saw all those people staring at me," Sarah said, her voice getting shaky again. "And I remembered that my mom is never coming back and I'll never get to play duets with her again." Marcus felt tears in his own eyes. "Now, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I know saying sorry doesn't fix anything, but I don't know what else to do." Sarah was quiet for a long time, staring out the window at the empty schoolyard. Finally, she spoke again. "The thing is, Marcus, I don't think you're a bad person. I think you just never learned to think about how your actions affect other people." Marcus was surprised by her response. He had expected her to yell at him or tell him she hated him. Instead, she was being more understanding than he deserved. "You're right," Marcus said. "I've spent so much time trying to make people laugh that I never thought about whether I was hurting someone in the process." "Making people laugh isn't wrong," Sarah said. "But making them laugh at someone else's expense is," Marcus nodded. "I'm starting to understand that now." I just wish I had learned it before I hurt you. Sarah looked at him directly for the first time since he had arrived. Can I ask you something, Marcus? Of course. Why did you pick me? Out of all the people in school, why did you decide to embarrass me? Marcus thought about this question seriously. I guess because you seemed like an easy target. You're quiet and you don't fight back. I thought you wouldn't make a big deal about it. So you thought I was weak? Sarah said. I thought you were... Marcus struggled to find the right words. I thought you were simple. Like there wasn't much going on beneath the surface? I was completely wrong about that. Sarah almost smiled, but not in a happy way. You know what's funny? Everyone thinks I'm just a quiet, boring girl who doesn't have any friends. But the truth is, I used to be really outgoing. I used to love performing and being around people. This surprised Marcus. What changed? When my mom got sick, I had to spend all my time taking care of her. I stopped going to parties and hanging out with friends because I needed to be home. And after she died, double quote, Sarah paused. After she died, I just didn't have the energy to be social anymore. Marcus felt even worse as he realized how much he had not known about Sarah's life. I had no idea you were dealing with all of that. That's my point, Sarah said. You don't know what anyone is dealing with. That girl you think is stuck up might be insecure. That guy you think is stupid might have a learning disability. That quiet girl you think is boring might be grieving the loss of her mother. Marcus sat down in a chair across from Sarah. You're right. I've been making assumptions about people for years without thinking about what their real stories might be. Everyone has a story, Marcus, Sarah said. And most of those stories are more complicated than they appear on the surface. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Marcus was thinking about all the people he had made jokes about over the years, wondering what pain or struggles he might have missed. Sarah, Marcus said finally, I know I can't undo what happened today, but is there anything I can do to make things better? Sarah considered this question carefully. I don't know. The damage is already done. By tomorrow, everyone in school will know that I can play piano. I'll probably get asked to join the band or perform at school events. And you don't want that? Marcus asked. I'm not ready for that, Sarah said. Maybe someday I will be, but right now, music is still too connected to my grief. I need time to figure out how to love piano again without it making me sad. Marcus understood. So what can I do to help you get that time? Sarah looked at him with surprise. She had not expected him to offer to help fix the problem he had created. I don't know, she said honestly. Maybe you could help people understand that I don't want to talk about playing piano right now? I can do that, Marcus said immediately. I'll tell everyone that you want privacy about the music thing. You would do that? Sarah asked. Of course, Marcus said. It's the least I can do after what I put you through. The next morning, Marcus arrived at school early. He had spent most of the night thinking about his conversation with Sarah and what he could do to help protect her privacy. He had a plan, but he was not sure if it would work. As students began arriving for the day, Marcus noticed that many of them were still talking about Sarah's piano performance. He heard several people saying they were going to ask her to play at various school events during first period. Marcus asked his teacher if he could make an announcement to the class. When she agreed, he stood up and faced his classmates. Hey, everyone, Marcus began, feeling nervous. I know a lot of you heard about Sarah Miller playing piano yesterday. I was there, and I want you all to know something important. The class turned to look at him with interest. Marcus took a deep breath and continued. Sarah didn't want to play in front of people. She was forced into it, and it was wrong. She's dealing with some personal stuff right now, and she needs privacy. About the music thing. So please don't ask her to play or perform anywhere. Several students looked confused by this announcement. One girl raised her hand. But she's so talented, the girl said. Why wouldn't she want to share that with people? Marcus had expected this question. Because not everything talented people do is meant to be shared. Sometimes music is personal and private. Sarah has her reasons for wanting to keep it that way, and we should respect that. After class, Marcus made similar announcements in all of his other classes. Some teachers seemed annoyed by the interruption, but most of them understood that Marcus was trying to help a fellow student. At lunchtime, Marcus sat with Tyler and Jake like usual. But instead of planning jokes or talking about sports, they found themselves discussing what had happened the day before. "I've been thinking about it all night," Tyler said. "I feel really bad about what we did to Sarah." Jake nodded in agreement. "Same here. I keep imagining how I would feel if someone forced me to do something that reminded me of my dead mom." "I talked to her yesterday after school," Marcus told them. "She's really hurt, but she's also more understanding than I deserve. She's trying to deal with grief, and now she has to handle all this unwanted attention too. What can we do to help?" Tyler asked. "I've been making announcements in my classes, asking people to give her privacy about the piano thing," Marcus explained. "Maybe you guys could do the same in your classes." "Definitely," Jake said immediately. "I'll do that this afternoon," Tyler agreed as well. "I feel like we owe her that much at least." As the day went on, Marcus noticed that their efforts were starting to have some effect. Students were still talking about Sarah's performance, but fewer people were talking about asking her to play for them. However, Marcus also noticed that Sarah was not in school that day. Her desk was empty in English class, and he did not see her in the hallways. He wondered if she was staying home to avoid all the attention. After school, Marcus decided to walk to Sarah's house. He had looked up her address in the school directory. He was not sure if she would want to see him, but he felt like he needed to check on her. Sarah lived in a small house about 10 minutes from school. The yard was neat and tidy, with a small garden that looked like it had been carefully maintained. Marcus walked up to the front door and knocked gently. Sarah's father answered the door. He was a tall, thin man with kind eyes that looked tired. Marcus could see where Sarah got her quiet, thoughtful nature. "You must be one of Sarah's classmates," her father said. "I'm sorry, but Sarah isn't feeling well today. She's staying home." "From school. I'm Marcus," Marcus said. "I was wondering if I could talk to her for just a minute." "It's about something that happened yesterday." Sarah's father studied Marcus's face for a moment. "Are you the boy who was involved in the piano incident?" Marcus felt his cheeks turn red. "Yes, sir. I wanted to apologize and see how she's doing." "She told me what happened," her father said. "She's pretty upset about it." "I know, sir. I feel terrible about what I did. I was hoping I could talk to her and maybe figure out how to make things better." Sarah's father was quiet for a moment, considering whether to let Marcus see his daughter. Finally, he nodded. "She's in the backyard, but please be gentle with her." "Yesterday was very difficult." Marcus walked through the house and out the back door. The backyard was small but beautiful, with flowers and trees that created a peaceful atmosphere. Sarah was sitting on a swing that hung from a large oak tree. Reading a book, when she saw Marcus approaching, Sarah looked surprised and a little wary. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to check on you," Marcus said. "I noticed you weren't in school today." Sarah closed her book and looked at him. "I couldn't face all the questions and stares. Everyone keeps looking at me like I'm some kind of celebrity or something." "I've been trying to help with that," Marcus said. "I made announcements in all my classes asking people to give you privacy about the music thing." Tyler and Jake did the same. Sarah looked surprised. "You did that?" "It's the least I could do," Marcus said. "I caused this problem, so I should try to help fix it." Sarah was quiet for a moment, thinking. "Thank you," she said finally. "That was thoughtful of you." Marcus sat down on the grass near the swing. "How are you feeling about everything?" Sarah sighed, confused mostly. "Part of me is angry at you for forcing me to play, but part of me is also grateful because it felt good to play again." "Really?" Marcus asked. "Yeah, I've been avoiding the piano for months because it made me too sad. But yesterday, when I was playing, I felt close to my mom again. It was painful, but it was also beautiful." Marcus did not know what to say to that. He was glad that's something Good had come from the situation, but he still felt guilty about forcing it to happen. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday," Sarah continued, "about how you never learned to think about how your actions affect other people." "Yeah? I think maybe what happened yesterday was a lesson for both of us. You learned about being more thoughtful, and I learned that I can't hide from my grief forever." Marcus looked at Sarah with new respect. Even after everything he had put her through, she was trying to find something positive in the situation. "You're a lot stronger than I gave you credit for," Marcus said. Sarah smiled a little. "I had to be strong when my mom was sick. I took care of her for almost a year before she died. It taught me that I'm tougher than I look." "I'm sorry you had to go through that," Marcus said. "Losing a parent must be the hardest thing in the world." "It is," Sarah agreed. "But my mom taught me that music can help us through difficult times. She used to say that when we play piano, we're having a conversation with everyone who ever loved that piece of music." Marcus thought about this idea. "So when you were playing yesterday, you were talking to your mom?" "In a way, yes. And maybe she was trying to tell me that it's okay to share our music with other people even when it's scary." They sat together in comfortable silence for a while, watching the leaves rustle in the oak tree above them. Marcus felt like he was starting to understand Sarah as a real person for the first time, not just as a target for his jokes. "Sarah," Marcus said finally, "I want you to know that I'm never going to do anything like this again." "To you or to anyone else, I believe you," Sarah said. "People can change when they want to." "I hope so," Marcus said. "I don't like who I was yesterday. I want to be better." Sarah looked at him with something that might have been the beginning of friendship. "Maybe we can both be better versions of ourselves." 3 weeks had passed since the piano incident, and things at school had slowly started to return to normal. Marcus had kept his promise to help protect Sarah's privacy, and gradually the excitement about her musical talent had died down. Marcus found himself paying attention to Sarah in ways he never had before. He noticed that she sat alone at lunch not because she was antisocial, but because she was still processing her grief. He saw that she was actually very smart and thoughtful when teachers asked for her opinions in class. Most importantly, Marcus had started to change his own behavior. Instead of looking for easy targets for his jokes, he tried to find ways to make people laugh that didn't involve embarrassing anyone. It was harder than his old way of being funny, but it felt better. One day after school, Marcus was walking past the music room when he heard piano music coming from inside. He recognized the melody immediately. It was the same piece Sarah had played that day 3 weeks ago. But this time, the music sounded different. It was still beautiful and emotional, but there was something lighter about it, less sad. Marcus stopped outside the door and listened. He did not want to interrupt or make Sarah feel like she was being watched. But the music was so beautiful that he could not help but stay for a few minutes. When the song ended, Marcus heard Sarah's voice from inside the room. "I know you're out there, Marcus. You can come in if you want." Marcus was surprised that she had known he was listening. He opened the door carefully and stepped inside. Sarah was sitting at the piano bench, looking more relaxed than he had seen her since her mother died. "How did you know it was me?" Marcus asked. Sarah smiled. "You have a very distinctive way of walking. Plus, you're the only person who stops to listen when I play but doesn't come in to ask questions." Marcus walked over to the piano. "You sounded different today." "Happier, maybe?" "I felt different," Sarah said. "I've been coming here after school for the past week, practicing. It still makes me sad sometimes, but it also makes me feel connected to my mom." "That's good," Marcus said. "I'm glad you're playing again." Sarah turned to face him. "I've been thinking about what you said that day in my backyard, about wanting to be a better person. I think you really have changed." Marcus felt proud, but also a little embarrassed. "I'm trying. It's not always easy to think before I act, but I'm getting better at it." "I've noticed," Sarah said. "You haven't made fun of anyone in weeks. And I heard you stood up for Kevin Chun when those seniors were bothering him about his accent." Marcus shrugged. "Kevin's a good guy? Those seniors were being jerks?" "The old Marcus would probably have joined in with the teasing," Sarah pointed. Out. Marcus thought about this and realized she was right. A month ago, he probably would have made jokes about Kevin's accent instead of defending him. I guess I have changed, Marcus said. Meeting you and learning about your story made me realize how much I didn't know about the people around me. Sarah nodded. Everyone has invisible struggles. My mom used to tell me that kindness costs nothing but can mean everything to someone who's having a hard day. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Sarah turned back to the piano and began playing a different song. This one was lighter and more cheerful, though still classically beautiful. This was my mom's favorite piece to play when she was happy, Sarah said as she played. She taught it to me when I was 12. Marcus listened, amazed once again by Sarah's incredible talent. But this time, instead of feeling guilty about discovering her secret, he felt honored that she was choosing to share her music with him. When Sarah finished playing, she turned to Marcus with a thoughtful expression. Can I tell you something? Of course. I've been thinking about joining the school band next year. Not because I want to perform or be famous, but because I think my mom would want me to share music with other people who love it, Marcus smiled. I think that sounds like a great idea. You're so talented, Sarah. It would be amazing if you could help other students learn to love music the way you do. It's scary, Sarah admitted. But maybe scary things are worth doing sometimes. Definitely, Marcus agreed. I was scared to admit I had been wrong about you and about the way I treated people. But doing it made me feel better about myself. Sarah stood up from the piano bench and gathered her books. I should get home. My dad worries if I'm too late. As they walked toward the door together, Marcus felt grateful for the strange way their friendship had begun. If he had not made that terrible mistake 3 weeks ago, he might never have gotten to know the real Sarah. Sarah, Marcus said as they reached the hallway, thank you for forgiving me. I know I didn't deserve it. Sarah stopped and looked at him seriously. Everyone deserves a second chance, Marcus. The question is what we do with that chance. I hope I'm doing something. Good with mine, Marcus said. You are? Sarah said with certainty. You're becoming the kind of person who makes other people feel safe and valued. That's one of the best things anyone can be. As they walked down the hallway together, Marcus thought about how much his life had changed in just 3 weeks. He had lost his reputation as the class clown, but he had gained something much more valuable, a real friendship and a better understanding of who he wanted to be. He also thought about Sarah and how much strength it must have taken for her to forgive him and to start playing piano again. She had turned a painful situation into an opportunity for growth and healing. Over the following months, Marcus continued to work on being more thoughtful and kind. He still liked to make people laugh, but now he did it in ways that brought joy instead of embarrassment. He and Sarah became good friends, bonded by their shared experience and mutual respect. Sarah did join the school band the next year, and she became one of their most valued members. She also started giving piano lessons to younger students, finding joy in passing on the gift her mother had given her. Sometimes, when Marcus walked past the music room and heard Sarah playing, he remembered that day when he had forced her to play as a joke. But instead of feeling guilty, he felt grateful. His worst mistake had led to his best friendship and had taught him the most important lesson of his life, that every person has a story worth knowing, and everyone deserves to be treated with kindness and respect. The piano incident, as it came to be known in their school, became a turning point for both Marcus and Sarah. It taught them that sometimes our greatest challenges can become our greatest opportunities for growth, and that forgiveness and understanding can transform even the most painful situations into something beautiful. Years later, when they were both adults, Marcus and Sarah would still remember that day in the music room as the moment their real lives began, the moment they both learned to see beyond the surface and recognize the deep, complex humanity in everyone around them.